When I was 17 years old, I weighed 230 pounds at around 5'10". Now, you might be saying, well, that's fine for a high schooler. Maybe you were playing football or something and had a lot of muscle and needed to play for a specific sport. First of all, if you actually did say that, I thank you for your immediate assumptions of something so kind. However, I was just extremely overweight and I had insane social anxiety because of it, and I was also made fun of a lot, whether it was by other people or by myself. It happened a lot. And it was this constant cycle of not having great mental health because I did not have great physical health. I would only wake up early if it was to go to school, and I would stay up constantly till 2 a.m., gaming, eating, scrolling, or any other things a teenager does past the hours of midnight. But my story here isn't in any way, shape, or form original by any means, especially with the rise of personal health and fitness online as a trend. If you interviewed 100 young men, I would optimistically like to think that you could find at least three or more that have undergone a transformation of habits similar to me. How deep was my transformation, you might ask? Well, I would show here what I look like after I worked out for the very first time, but I've already shown it in a previous video, and I think YouTube genuinely thinks my chest is explicit due to how unhealthy I was. However, shown here is a picture of what I look like around that time. Okay. And here is what I look like just last year: 6 feet tall, 173 pounds. But every time I look at these pictures, it never ceases to amaze me the effort I put in from my junior year of high school all the way until my junior year of college. However, about a year ago, I sustained an injury that severely limited my ability to work out. Thankfully, a surgery a week ago has put me back on track to be working out at full capacity in about a month. I bring all this up to make the point that I've had a lot of time on my hands to reflect negatively on how I'm nowhere near what I used to be. But I've also reflected positively on what I have permanently changed within myself in order to achieve the results I've shown you. Here's where I introduce to you the bookshelf method, a glance back into how I made these serious lifestyle changes. Now, for a second, close your eyes. Picture a bookshelf. Now, I'm not talking about some large bookcase you would find in a library, but rather a simple floating shelf on a wall, probably just held up by some wood glue and some screws. Someone had to put that bookshelf up on that wall, didn't they? Well, that would be your parents. And just like everything else in life, that bookshelf, your life, won't last forever. One day you will die, and one day that bookshelf will fall off the wall, whether it's filled with books or not. Now, in order to keep books standing up on a shelf, we're not just lying them down. I mean, what are we, cavemen? You need to have two bookends. These can be whatever you want, whether they're some super ornate ones, some collector's editions for some cool hardcover book series, or a funny one, like my favorite ones that are like two halves of an animal. These bookends represent the start of your day and the end of your day, kind of following a timeline like this. And if you're following along here, all of the books that are put in between them represent the things you decide to fill your day with. The reason why the bookends come first is that you can own bookends and put them on a shelf without actually owning any books. However, if you decide to stand a book straight up on a shelf like this without any bookends, odds are it's probably going to fall. This represents how no matter if you fill your day with absolutely nothing, you will have a beginning, i.e., waking up, and an end, i.e., going to sleep. Now, in order to fill our bookshelf, we must first look at both of our bookends, our mornings and our nights. If these are old and falling apart or made of cruddy material, we have to fix that first because we don't want all of our books to collapse. And that's where I started improving my life with my mornings and my nights. Now, for a second, imagine if you didn't decide to improve your life at all besides when you woke up and when you went to sleep. Could you just imagine how overall better you would feel if you started not going on your phone an hour before bed, taking supplements for your sleep, taking magnesium glycinate, wearing a sleep mask, or sleeping in a cold room. And for your mornings, even if you just tried to stay off your phone an hour after you wake up, if you ate a balanced breakfast, woke up at a consistent time, exercised in the morning, or even something simple like just going for a walk, even if you did just a couple of those things, how much would your life improve? And that's where we start, establishing our reliable bookends. After that, like any good piece of furniture or decoration in our house, we're going to put it up and walk past it a bunch of times during our week, month, or our year. And hey, maybe we don't like the bookends, so we change them out a couple times or even make our own bookends and put those up. All that matters is that they're there to hold up our books. If we don't like the current ones, we should always be able to change them out with something else. Next, we move on to the books, what we spend hours of the day doing. Now, I don't know about you, but I want my bookshelf to be filled with some pretty cool books. I mean, have you ever been in someone's room and seen some really niche books that you know had to be hard to understand, and you thought to yourself, wow, if they actually read those, then they must be really cool? We ourselves could always just do this. Since it's our bookshelves in our room, it's our life from our perspective. We could lie and show people a shelf full of books we've never read, tell people a bunch of stuff we are, quote unquote, trying to do in order to seem cooler. Deep down, however, that would leave us feeling empty inside. Leave us feeling mentally worse. We'd be lying. So we're only going to fill our shelves with things we actually do. No LARPing allowed. Now, no one wants to look at a bookshelf full of How to Doom Scroll 101 and it takes up the entire shelf. A, that would be a pretty huge book. B, that would be a huge waste of space on our shelf. And C, a book and a phone are almost the complete opposite. One contains a finite amount of information that cannot easily be changed and does not run on electricity. And the other one does. So it honestly would just be empty space on our shelf. And if you think about it, if you put books with empty space next to each other, next to other books, they're just going to topple over. AKA, it's a huge waste of time during our day. We got to fill this space with the things we enjoy learning about. And the best way to learn about something is to do it, to put aside time, space on your bookshelf, and give it your honest effort. Reading a book is also a way to learn about something, thus, this representation. So, you go out shopping for books, hobbies, jobs, activities to fill your shelf. Perhaps how to paint, exercise 101, personal finance for dummies, or you write your own. Perhaps from time to time on your bookshelf there appear scrapbooks or journals, representations of the memories we make with others throughout our days, or periods of intentional reflection throughout our days. Just like books, we can always slide one out and change it for something else. Getting sick of painting? Let's try music production. Don't like that? Maybe we throw in how to fish or learning poker. Whatever it is, just let there be something there, and not empty space or time left up for question and anxiety, or even worse, scrolling on your phone. Now, time spent doing nothing is important, but remember I just said if we make this time intentional, we represent it as a journal, even though it might not involve journaling. Another facet of this metaphor I really enjoy is the fact that usually books are only on a shelf once we finish them. But in this context, we should think of ourselves as someone who can handle reading multiple books at once, which, especially for me, is incredibly difficult at times, but for now, let's assume we have very good attention spans. Another thing for those of you who aren't active readers, sometimes you have space for that book in your school bag, your work bag, tote bag, or whatever you decide to carry stuff in. Some activities that we choose to participate in aren't going to be able to occupy long, continuous periods of time every time we do them. Or sometimes we might just not be near our bookshelf enough to grab that book every time we want to read it. So we bring it with us and just read it whenever we get the chance, because that's how much we enjoy it. Whenever we get the chance to do a hobby or an activity that we really like, we take that chance and we fill that time, even though it might not represent space on our shelf, time throughout our day. It also teaches us that when we perceive the lives of others and their successes, that we don't weigh ourselves up against them. They might have a cookbook up on their shelf, but their shelf is hung up in a kitchen. So we shouldn't wonder why we have a book titled Project Management or Q4 Profitability Metrics up on our shelf when we are hung up in an office. Finally, the room our bookshelf is in. This represents our environment and the world around us. Everyone else's day happens in a different environment with a different perspective attached to it. Someone might post about what activities they're doing and how cool their life is, or in this scenario, rather, how their bookshelf is filled with the most expensive hardcovers and autographed books. But they exist within a completely different environment than you do, a completely different room you have no access to, and you cannot truly see what's going on in their day, what books they are actually reading. This helps with the element of focusing on ourselves and not letting the perceptions of others affect what we do and when we do it if it's something we truly love, something that we've put aside space on our shelf for. Once we become old enough, we can take our shelf off the wall in whatever room it's in and go hang it up in whatever other room and whatever other building we can find. And maybe then different books, different activities, different ways to fill our time might feel a lot more at home on that shelf. This all really does explain how I learned to fill my days with great satisfaction in college. I started by waking up early and walking to the gym, and ended by reading or studying and then going to bed at the same time every day. Then, from that point, I worked inwards to fill my days with hanging out with friends, going to class, walking around campus, or playing games outside, or video games, or whatever else I could find. Now, sometimes I absolutely do look back on what was on my bookshelf and I laugh. I think to myself, what in the world was that doing there? Why was I doing that? But I know I've moved on and I'm okay with that. After all, what's the point of keeping a book that you don't like? Maybe you find someone else who's interested in it and tell them all about it. Or maybe you even give them that book and show them that hobby and show them that activity so that it can go on their shelf. Now, sometime in the future, you will be in an unstable state, or you may just cross paths with someone else looking to ruin someone's day. And either of you may come along and swipe your arms across the bookshelf and throw everything onto the floor at a moment's notice, leaving you with nothing. But as long as you take a step back, pick up all the books off the ground and place them back on yourself and keep going, you will always have yourself. Or rather, you'll always have your shelf. Thanks for watching.